Right now I'm joined by Alex Melikhov, CEO of Equilibrium. And there he is. Good to see you, Alex. Take it away.
Good to see you. Thanks very much. Good afternoon, everyone. Good morning to those who are watching us overseas, and I'm super excited to be here and to share some details on what we're building at Equilibrium and how exactly we're leveraging the advantages of the Polkadot technology. So firstly, let me kick this off with my self introduction. So I'm Alex, the CEO at the Equilibrium team. I'm also the co-founder, actually, first of all, let me give you a little bit of context of what exactly we're building at Equilibrium. So in a nutshell, Equilibrium is the first decentralized interoperable conglomerate of DeFi products. It's actually designed to solve the problem of liquidity fragmentation in DeFi, thanks to interoperability delivered by the underlying platform, blockchain platform, Polkadot, respectively. And actually, we are we have designed the system which is introducing a bunch of DeFi use cases united in one-stop shop, including pooled lending, decentralized stablecoin. We have a native decentralized stablecoin embedded into the system. It's backed to dollar called EQD. We also have the functionality of synthetic asset generation. We will be delivering the functionality of the professional grade decentralized exchange, which will be cross-chain and deliver the margin trading almost out of the box. So I also wanted to touch on several milestones that we have achieved so far. So first of all, we have collected 250,000 dots, being almost the first project that rolled out its first phase of parachain lease offering on Polkadot. We'll be using these funds as a fraction of our further bids at the auction, at the parachain auctions on the Polkadot network. And basically, the second thing I wanted also to emphasize here that we have announced recently our plans with regards to Kusama network. We'll be launching the Genchira parachain there, which will be inheriting the experimental spirits of Kusama. And I will touch on that in the course of the presentation. So here I wanted to make a transition to my today's topic, which is bailouts versus auctions. I mentioned that we have basically built up the quite innovative architecture, which is underpinning the product line that we are creating on top of the substrate technology. And basically these innovations are lying in certain aspects. So first of all, we have developed the risk management system, and quite an innovative one. And we are taking quite innovative approach in terms of the debt management. And actually, here, first of all, I wanted to outline the problem of debt liquidation in DeFi. And actually, this problem exists. So first of all, I wanted to start off with the explanation of over-collateralization, which is common practice for the overall DeFi space. So basically, users who are taking out loans in DeFi protocols, they are providing collateral worth enough to cover the potential losses, and it's actually over-collateralization. And simultaneously, most of the loans in DeFi, as we all know, have no maturity, but they actually have the borrowers actually commit to certain critical collateralization levels simultaneously. And if it comes to certain price movements on the markets, some price drops or whatever, borrowers actually can get liquidated if the collateralization levels of their loans are dropping below certain levels. So actually, we have two ways of solving the problem of debt liquidation. If we look at the real world use cases, we can basically see that there is first of all the option of redistributing of debt obligations in the case of borrower's default. If it comes to some guarantors or whatever insurers who are taking over the debt obligations for defaulted borrowers, we can deal with certain debt obligation redistribution. So the second approach is actually the sell-off of debts. For example, if we also refer to some real-world use cases, for example, if you have some mortgage loan and you fail to pay back this loan at some point, actually bank or whatever financial institution will seize your property, your some real estate, and sell off through some auctions. So this approach of forced sell-offs, either via sell-offs with discounts or auctions, is quite common practice in the current DeFi space. And actually, auctioning is a really bad idea, and I explain you why. So first of all, the auction itself may fail due to different circumstances. There might be clogs in the underlying network, for example, some bugs in code or architecture of the protocol. At the end of the day, there might no participants show up at the auction due to some significant market turmoil, and basically there will be no auction participants who are willing to buy out debts even at discounts through this auction. So the second problem here is that the debt during the auction is staying in the system, which means that it also, like, the system takes the risk of potential slippage because the price of collateral or assets which have to be liquidated are actually remain in the system, right? And the overall system solvency is under significant risk. So just for you to understand the scale of this problem, I have put together the sort of the breakdown of the DeFi protocols in the space, specifically on Ethereum, which are using this type of mechanism for debt liquidation in their technology. So all these protocols, including MakerDAO, Aave, Compound, InstaDApp, are in top 10. And overall, they are holding 42 billion of total value locked, which means that they actually have over 50% of TVL on Ethereum locked in their smart contracts. So actually, MakerDAO is using auctioning, and so they already actually experienced certain problems with that back in last year during the Black Thursday. And Aave and Compound, they're also using sell-offs at discounts in their protocols. And just imagine that in some price shock movements, like all this tremendous amount of liquidity will influx the markets through auctions or sell-offs. It will be really disaster. So fortunately, we have the solution for that. And actually, this solution is bailouts. We are actually the first protocol to introduce this kind of solution to debt management, which means that in basic terms, we have a separate liquidity pool in the system called bailout pool, which is used to basically to manage these debts. And basically, we introduced this special user role, which is called bailsman. And bailsmen, they are providing liquidity into this bailout pool in advance, and they're actually earning a significant fraction of interest paid by borrowers. So actually, similar to other DeFi protocols, the most of potential losses, like expected ones, are covered by overcollateralization in our protocol as well. However, if it comes to certain liquidations due to significant price movements or price drops, bailsmen are actually coming into play. So if particular loan is getting liquidated, in our case, these debt obligations are simply transferred from borrowers to bailsmen. So bailsmen, they're taking over these obligations, and it means that there are no forced actions required in the course of, in the case of some, margin calls or whatever debt obligations in our system. This actually makes the system more balanced and represents less risk compared to auctioning in the distressed markets. Obviously, bailsmen, they can withdraw funds from the bailout pool only in case of debt repayment. respectively proportional to their stakes in the bailout pool. So actually, here I wanted to also to mention our risk-based approach, which we are taking versus, and it's opposed to the utilization approach, because we need a certain a system of checks and balances to incentivize bailsmen to provide liquidity in the bailout pool. And specifically, if the bailout pool becomes and the overall system becomes less solvent, the interest rate in our case is fluctuating. So this risk-based approach is inherited from the world of traditional finance, and actually it's based on our risk management system, which can hardly be implemented on any other sort of blockchain protocol rather than on Polkadot, which has the embedded functionality of chain workers. And since we actually perform a lot of computations in terms of this approach, it cannot be built on any other protocols like standalone substrate, standalone blockchains like Ethereum. So if we compare this risk-based approach to utilization approach, and utilization approach is basically most common practice for the DeFi protocols, like for Compound and Aave, when the borrowing cost is actually depending on how much borrowed from the pool. Risk-based approach is really different, and yeah, I was actually covering some aspects of risk-based approach that we're taking at Equilibrium, which is opposed to the utilization approach, which is common for the most of liquidity protocols in the current DeFi space, like Compounds or Aave. And this approach cannot be implemented on any other blockchain in the current technologies, rather than on Polkadot, which is supporting the off-chain computations. And actually, I wanted to here to make the transition to make a transition to why exactly it's hardly to implement this on the existing networks. So first of all, in order to make this happen, we need to perform, as I said, a decent amount of real-time computation for financial metrics. Secondly, we definitely need certain cross-chain operations, which are possible just in Polkadot thanks to its bridges, but it's almost impossible any other networks, specifically in this decentralized way. We do need to manage single portfolios versus client portfolios versus single collateral positions in our protocol, which also requires certain resources. And for better user experience, we have implemented certain automated operations, which also almost impossible on other existing networks. So here's actually the breakdown of some specific technical advantages of Polkadot that we're using at Equilibrium. So first of all, we are leveraging the off-chain workers technology because we're using them for certain heavy real-time computing, for improvements of user experience, and for consequent portfolio of currencies. Obviously, you guys know that the substrate technology itself offers certain flexibility in terms of basically implementing certain functionality. You can customize the runtime of your blockchain, and we are also heavily leveraging that in Equilibrium and Genshira, which is our Kusama-based parachain. And basically, we have modified the balance palette because it's actually used in our case not just for token accounting and like user balances on certain addresses, but it also delivers the lending functionality almost out of the box. We also have done certain runtime customization. We actually have custom transaction fees on our blockchain, and all this tremendous amount of flexibility is obviously not achievable on any other networks and some developer environments. So just to wrap up, I also wanted to mention our Genshira parachain, which is supposed to be the canary network for Equilibrium. And actually, it will be sharing the experimental spirits of the Kusama network. And we are super excited approaching the parachain auctions on the Kusama network, and we definitely expect to bring certain value to the Kusama community with introducing our Genshira parachain, which will have sort of more functionality, more sort of experimental functionality compared to Equilibrium. They have a wider variety of assets actually plugged into this parachain, and it will also have a special set of system parameters for those traders who used to taking more risk during their operations. So yeah, so basically here's our contact details. Feel free to reach out to us if you have any further questions. We do have our functionality up and running on the testnet. You can check it out on app.equilibrium.io. And yeah, thanks very much for having me here. And I'm happy to take your questions, if any.
Thank you so much, Alex. Really interesting to think about going back to the early days of Bitcoin and learning about, you know, Satoshi's message in the first block, thinking about bailouts, you know, and then seeing how you turned it around and turning it into something that can be positive if it's put on a decentralized scale. So how did you come up with this? What was your first thought about turning bailouts from a bad thing into a good thing?
Yeah, so we actually, like, again, we looked at the world of traditional finance, where bailouts is a quite, you know, common practice, and it works for good. And we thought that it would be awesome to implement that in our product line. However, you know, based on our previous experience building on other blockchains, we could not do that due to different technical congestions or limitations. So eventually we decided to, like, as we saw the opportunity to implement it on Polkadot, we just decided to jump on that right away.
Cool. Another question we have is there a market for leveraged options in Equilibrium?
No, not yet. We're thinking about that, and moreover, we're thinking of rolling out some other interesting derivative products. However, not at this point. For now, we're working on the some core functionality of our decentralized exchange, and actually, it's supposed to be first of all, the margin trading functionality and spot markets rolled out first of all. But then we'll look at implementation, some other ideas that we have on our roadmap.
Okay. One thing you noted is that you're using off-chain workers for UX improvements. Now, off-chain workers are a feature in Substrate that load a lot of computation off the chain so that you can have higher throughput normally. But do you know how you're using the off-chain workers for UX improvements? Is that something quite novel?
Yeah, just very simple example here. So we do have certain sort of vesting functionality, for example, for our tokens, and we have implemented sort of automated claiming for tokens, which can be utilized by our users. But actually, based on this example, we can do various things in our product line as well, so that we can just trigger certain functionality within our product line to make it automated.
Okay, another question we have is in your slide about the transaction fees, I think there was a point about only invalid abusal technical transactions to be charged. Does that mean transaction fees will be free or very low at least?
So this part was actually related to some specifically technical transactions for Oracle providers, for example, who will be feeding fees into our protocol. And so obviously, in order to eliminate the risk of some abusal transactions, we will be charging for those transactions which failed. However, for some goodwill participants who are actually providing some valid information, this transaction will be free of charge.
Okay, cool. And one last question is, can we earn or buy the shirt you're wearing?
Yeah, for sure. Look, we expect to produce some substantial amounts of swag and basically provides our community the opportunity to take it from us.
Okay, well, great. Thanks so much for your talk.